Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you with the New Mutants War Children one shot. Packing is finally done. So the moving will commence and it's going to be a whirlwind. So I don't know when I'm going to be able to get another review in. So I thought, why not make this excellent comic book the last review I do at my current house? So in a way, it's kind of bittersweet, but it's also a look into, new beginnings. And that's kind of what I liked about this book, is even though they go, the idea of the Marvel 80 years is they took legacy stories or comic runs and they put the original creative team back on. So like the Incredible Hulk was one of them, and some other ones that I can't remember off the top of my heads. I am talking in the plural, but this one, of course, grabbed my attention because it's the return of Chris Claremont and Bill Sienkiewicz together. And even though it was McLeod that started the book, and his artwork was excellent, it was more traditional, like what we were already seeing in Uncanny and like the Marvel look at the time. Sienkiewicz really put a stamp on the New Mutants during this era because it became surreal and almost horror. So to see his artwork come back with the storytelling of Claremont, I definitely had to have this. So right off the bat, I will say, spoiler alert, highly recommend this book. But why do I highly recommend it? Well, let's jump into it. So to kind of put some context, as this takes place somewhere after the event that was called the Asgardian Wars, that was back in 1988. If you have not read it, it is a really entertaining event. Back when event books were not as often as now, where it seems like every week there's another event and it just really kills it. But yeah, it really feels like the two have not really lost a step. And while this is going on, you really think that this is the primary focus is Warlock, which to a degree it is, but we'll get into that. Now, again, what I miss about traditional, or as a lot of people say, bygone way of telling comics, which to me is not a bygone. To me, it's how comics should be written. I think just people have forgotten. So everyone's always saying how Claremont was wordy. Yes, but it meant something. Because it says, once upon a time, not so very long ago, just outside the town of Salem Center, there was a school for gifted youngsters. This is one of the students. His name is Warlock. He's not from around here. He has a destiny unique to his own kind. And now a lot of people always talk about how they don't like the way that Warlock talks or how he tries to assimilate into society. That does not bug me, because it's kind of the same way in Star Trek: The Next Generation. I can't remember what the correct English word is, but how Data can't say don't or can't. He has to say do not, cannot. He's an android, for crying out loud. Cut some slack. Just how, again, each character, for example, Rain, when she talks, you can always see how she has the Irish enunciation of her words. Here with Warlock, self friends are happy. Self, and look at how Sienkiewicz here takes the words and starts to spin it like he's just losing his mind. He goes, self is scared. I feel like each character's way of talking really helps them stand out and shine. Now, before we go further into why Warlock would be scared, why this is kind of random, which to me it is a little random, but nonetheless, this is Claremont writing, Bill Sienkiewicz art, Chris Sotomayor doing the coloring, VC's Clayton Cowles doing the lettering, and then I like that they actually brought Bob McLeod and whatnot for variants. Here's everyone else that worked on the book. And again, New Mutants was created by Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod. So let's just make sure to focus that. But as you can see here, look at how everything just does not look like traditional comic books here. How otherworldly Warlock looks. And how you kind of get this sense of madness. Especially when he starts to realize that Warlock, because he comes from a Technarch society, his father is the leader. Magus, I believe is how you pronounce his name. And he's kind of given Warlock this destiny of either his friends are going to kill him or he has to kill his friends. And so I like it why they're explaining this. It says here, to fulfill that destiny, to become the Magus, he must annihilate all that he holds dear or let it destroy him. So again, as you can see, this takes place after the Asgardian Wars because Danielle Moonstar is now a Valkyrie with her steed Brightwind. I love, again, that they brought Kitty Pryde into the fold because her and Doug were always really close friends. Doug Ramsey, that is, for those of you that don't know. Of course, Ilyana Rasputin. And see how each one you get this horror element. It really throws back to the Demon Bear arc that we went over. I'll make sure to throw a card in here so you guys can check it out. But you can see that this team has not lost a step. We see Shen, Rain. I love that she's reading Game of Thrones, by the way. We see Magma, Amara. We see Hela, who is the leader of the Valkyries. We see Doug Ramsey, Layla Channing, whom he's in love with, which him and Guido will probably have to fight over that. And then Robert DaCosta. So, again, we have the original cast of the New Mutants set in the time of when they were young. Again, this is back when Xavier first recruited them. But anyway, again, the madness. I love Sienkiewicz's art. It really enhances what Claremont is talking about. I'm not trying to focus too much on the art because both the artwork and the storytelling is symbiotic. If one is off, then it just kind of ruins the whole thing. So again, this is a show don't tell type situation where even Claremont looks like he kind of backs off the dialogue, as where back in his heyday he was a little wordy. I will go with that, but without it we wouldn't have the mutants that we love, to this day. And anyway, again, what I love about Sienkiewicz here is you can tell these are not 3D models. It's very I don't want to say expressionism. That's not a word. Feel free to make fun of me down in the comments. It's like an expressionists. Everything has those hard edges. And you can see the line work. And it just really gives it that extra layer as we see the mansion getting destroyed as Warlock doesn't want to harm his friends. And it's here that we get to see our original team interacting with one another. And I like how right off the bat they go, oh man, we're going to get blamed for the mansion getting destroyed. So that's kind of the joke, the Xavier Institute gets destroyed so often it's ridiculous. And what I like too is Claremont here is able to start touching back on some of his arcs from back in the day. So for example, we get a moment with Danny and Hela, and how at the moment Danny is rejecting her quote-unquote responsibilities and destiny to Hela, and she's thinking she's not the same person that I know. She's seeming almost infected like Warlock is right now, and how the rest of the forest and the Xavier state looks like. Now what am I talking about there? This is where people say Claremont gets wordy and it's a bygone era. Again, no, it's not. Let's stop with that. Because they're saying that Claremont doesn't know how to write for the new generation, which I can understand where you need to adapt. But if something works, don't break it. Now, what do I mean by that? Claremont always was very meticulous in how he explained the area you're in. Kind of like how you would in a novel, where it says the Xavier estate occupies 3 square miles along the northern shore of Breakstone Lake, from smooth lowlands around the mansion to an impressive ridgeline rising to the west. Why do we care about this? The students have roamed these woods often. They thought they knew them well. They were wrong. So again, we get this fictional area fleshed out for us where the Xavier estate. So we know Xavier lives in a mansion, but who would care enough to tell us how the lands work? And then he makes you care, like, why? Because the students are supposed to know the Force. They were wrong. Sienkiewicz takes it from there, visualizes it, and we get a horrific look of what Warlock's Technarch, or the techno-organic virus, or as they call it during this time, the transmode virus, has done to the forest. Here, we get a beat, and we get to kind of feel how each character is supposed to be. You know, everyone doesn't just feel like you can substitute anybody and just place in the dialogue. So, for example, you know, we get this one character complaining, "Stop your whining, billionaire boy," meaning Robert DaCosta. "I think this new landscape's kind of cute. Big surprise, demon girl." Say that with a smile, Berto. And respect. Demons have a temper. It still gives you chills because that's how Illyana is supposed to talk. I don't like that she's kind of in the modern books, specifically around like X-Men Gold, Red, and Blue, during that era, how she kind of became more this mopey goth girl. Illyana, to me, when she was part of the New Mutants, she knew how to carry herself, but yet there was still a sorrow to her because of what happened in Limbo. We've gone over issue 1 of when she went to Limbo, so I'll again make sure to throw a card somewhere in this review so you can check it out at your convenience. But again, Claremont, these were his babies. If you go back and watch, again, if you have Amazon Prime, watch Chris Claremont's X-Men, he explains how him and Nasanti and Louise Simonson saw these characters as people. They say we go into the office and we just talk like they were our friends. And that's why we care about them, is because they are more than just figures on a page. Claremont and the team gave them life. And then the art team just helps to flesh it out. We know what they look like, and to just give us beautiful panels, as you see here, the very noir, painted in shadows. It's just absolutely beautiful, especially when we kind of get the story together, which I don't want to run, but look at this. The disjointedness really adds to the story. It enhances it, does not take it away. Shows, doesn't tell for the most part. You see the threat of what's happening to these particular two characters. And then a cacophony of action happens, and just look at these panels as Claremont is explaining certain things. It does not detract from Sienkiewicz's and the art team's work here. Absolutely beautiful. Now again, another thing that I will say I call bull crap on when they say it's a bygone era is the explanation of characters' powers. The reason I say this is I can't remember, I think it was Jim Shooter. If I'm wrong, let me know. But it was said back in the day, and when Marvel was at its high point, especially the X books, they would say each issue, you know, let's say, for example, someone just got in the comics and they ran out to the newsstand and grabbed the latest edition of New Mutants. They don't know who they are, why they are, but this is their first issue. This is going to mean a lot to them. So each issue should be like everyone's first issue. So in that regard, the explanation of powers. So we see Karma here. She's attacking one of her allies. Why? Read the book. But here, Karma's power is simple. She possesses people. By focusing her will, she grabs hold of the minds of the creatures before her and stops Danny, Sam, Brightwing in their tracks. They aren't happy. She doesn't care. We need to care about these characters. We need to kind of know something about them. This is important. There was a couple of issues that I've read in the newer run, specifically again around the X-Men Red, Gold, and Blue era, that time period, where you'd see this introduction of the characters, and they say, Wolverine, he's a cranky head. You know, don't poke the bear. LOL, so random. Don't do that. Excuse me. Explain the character. Be clear and concise. You want to flesh these characters out. Storytelling. Why do we want to care about these people? You know, why do we want to care about this panel? Why is it important that Karma attacking her teammates? Again, and then what's a Karma? What does she do? Claremont does it. So I don't agree with that being called a bygone era. I call that an era that we need to come back to and stop calling it a bygone era. If we need to shorten the dialogue and make it a little more upbeat for teens, and up and coming comic readers, sure, but don't do like Kitty Pryde. She's quirky with computers. Haha, she likes her espressos like this. Don't do that. Please don't do that. So again, I'll get off my little soapbox there. But again, look at this. Even though this was 2019 when this book was done, you look at this panel, and this just harkens back to like the insanity, and I mean that in a good, nostalgic, like yearning for like Doctor Strange or Silver Surfer, or even like I think, if I'm wrong, let me know about the era, but I think Walter Simonson's Thor era, where you just kind of get this acid trip feeling. This is supposed to be Limbo. And it just works. And especially since this is supposed to be back in the 80s when the New Mutants were coming together, this style, Sienkiewicz does not lose a beat. That's why I'm talking about the way you read this. Yeah, there's a couple of hokey parts, but it can be forgiven because it just doesn't feel like they lost their touch at all, in my personal opinion. And yes, I'm a little biased because I've been reading the X-Men since I was 6 years old, and I'm an old fuddy-duddy now. So it means a lot to me, especially when you see moments like this with Illyana. There's a moment when she becomes Dark Child. What does it mean when we see this with the techno-organic virus? Because once the techno-organic virus, transmode virus, whatever, touches you, it touches her. And she says, "You fools, what have you done?" I mean, God, you could take these out, which I highly recommend you don't because you lose the value of the book. But you could take this out and put it on the wall. That is absolutely how beautiful that is. Oh, that's when I first saw this panel, when I picked it off the rack, and to this day I look at this and it gives me chills because that is beautiful. That is an awesome representation of Illyana as Dark Child. So again, I don't want to give away all of what this means with the transmode virus. And what I meant by this, to a degree, is Warlock's story. It is also Illyana's. And again, I love this panel because this looks like something you would see in scary stories to tell in the dark. That's how good this panel is to me, because we see how small Doug and Rain are in scale to what Warlock is right now, where he's filled with this rage of what he knows he's supposed to do. And without giving away too much, there's a real heartfelt moment that I don't want to give away because I want you guys to read it. But here, he's talking about fate. He says, Warlock and Magus must always battle. Only one can survive. Self could not bear the thought of self-friends. Self having to end them. And then Doug says, who says that's the way things have to be? Maybe for what you were, pal. But since joining the New Mutants and becoming my friend, you've changed. You aren't bound by old rules. You've grown into something better. Ah, that just hits you right in the heart. Because Doug and Warlock were always real tight. That's why it broke my heart when I read both issues of them passing. But nonetheless, it gives a moment to breathe on what the story is with Illyana and Warlock. And we get some real, just balls to the wall craziness here where Doug and Warlock merge. And then while we have that moment to talk about with fate and prophecies with Warlock, we get it like the battling your inner demons, literally Illyana versus Dark Child. And guys, it's so good. I don't want to give any more away. Like, I want to show you the whole book, but I want you to go out and pick this up. So as I always say, if you have enjoyed this comic book, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and pick this comic book up. Now, one thing that I will say why this book means a lot to me is when I saw it when they were talking. This was right around the talks of Dawn of X. I was hoping that Claremont and Sienkiewicz were going to kick it off, and I was like, oh yes, But then I found out this was a one-shot and it killed me. Because as much as I like, I think it was during that era was Ed Brisson doing New Mutants. I liked his work on Old Man Logan. But then I read that first Dawn of X New Mutants book, and oh my god. It's, I think, 3 pages of Ileana, Chamber, and Robert DaCosta standing around talking about coffee. Nothing else. Dialogue boxes all over the place about coffee. And it just took me out of the book. As were this, the story stayed on point. And that's what I meant by there's a few hokey parts, but it didn't detract. They weren't stuck sitting in a room, standing and talking. And even in the moments where they were standing and talking, it was long enough to give you a beat, a rest, before something happened. And that's why I said the way Claremont writes and the older generation, I would say older generation, it's not a bygone era. It's an era that really needs to be revisited and revised to the point where you don't lose the core of what it meant for storytelling, both artistically and just with the pen. And it needs to be expounded on so that this original storytelling styles can launch into the future and not be lost or be called a bygone era. That just rubbed me the wrong way when I read that. Anyway, I will go ahead and leave it there, guys, because I cannot praise this book high enough. If you are a fan of the X-Men like I am, this is something you want in your collection. It is going to be something special because you're more than likely not going to see this team back together ever again. So that, to me, means the world. So if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little mutant bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, which I promise once I get my studio up at the new house, will be regular once again. You guys can come to the channel, and we love to hear your feedback and just talk with y'all down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers. More reviews will be coming soon.